So while he was creating Alien Earth, Noah Hawley said the following: "If you find yourself making Blade Runner, you're making the wrong Ridley Scott movie. Well, I hate to break it to you, mate, but you've made the wrong Ridley Scott movie." Literally within the first 5 seconds of episode 1, while reading the intro card, Blade Runner immediately popped into my head. If you're not looking to remake Blade Runner, then why have you decked out Timothy Olyphant as though Roy Batty violently threw up all over him? He looks exactly the same as Ridley Scott's chief antagonist, and even uses the exact same turns of phrase.
That's what it is to be a slave.
The unfortunate thing is, Timothy Olyphant is a really good actor, and it's a shame he's been asked to channel his inner Rutger Hauer. That said, he's probably the only person who emerges from episode 1 and 2 with any credibility. Alien Earth is an absolute mess. The script lurches all over the place. There's way too many characters and way too much going on, and in my opinion, has little or nothing to do with the Alien franchise. Back in 2000, they released a new Hellraiser movie called Hellraiser Inferno. This was originally a film script which had sweet FA to do with the original Hellraiser franchise, but the scriptwriters strategically squeezed in some appearances of the iconic Pinhead in order to tap into an existing fan base. Alien Earth reeks of exactly the same dodgy business practices. The xenomorph in Alien Earth could be any crazed ferocious predator. It doesn't even act much like the creature we've seen previously. Alien Earth Episode 1 starts with 2 distinct story arcs. In a secret facility on Earth, we are introduced to Marcy, a terminally ill girl who has her consciousness transferred into Wendy, a supercharged synthetic with superpowers who leaps around like the Incredible Hulk. Immediately I found myself rolling my eyes, and there were many reasons for this. Firstly, the CGI was utter toilet. Secondly, we just lost any threat or jeopardy from the series, because in comparison, the xenomorph looks a bit underpowered when it comes to killing. To such an extent, you have to wonder why these dastardly corporations even want the xenomorph for their weapons division, given they can now mass-produce the Avengers without traipsing halfway across the galaxy. Mind you, anyone who's yearned to see Alien vs Supergirl will be happy with this series. Another problem with Wendy's superpowers is it makes Ash and Bishop and all the other artificial persons we've seen appear later in the future look a bit fucking useless. Anyway, it turns out Wendy isn't going to be alone. Before we know it, another group of terminally ill kids are wheeled in, and suddenly I'm watching Raised by Wolves, the failed and cancelled Ridley Scott project. Is Alien Earth just going to be Noah Hawley paying homage to everything Ridley Scott has ever laid his hands on?
Yeah, great. You can blow me after practice.
I can't wait for episode 4, when Maximus will make a cameo appearance. As with Wendy, the terminally ill kids also get their own supercharged superhuman bodies, which not only make zero sense, I mean, why would you give so much power to someone so young? But it also means we get loads of nauseating, painful and childish dialogue. And it makes me wonder if children actually wrote this nonsense, and whether an alien victory in this show would be such a bad thing after all. The second story arc takes place aboard the USS Majino, a deep space research vessel with a mission to retrieve the 5 most dangerous creatures in the universe. What could possibly go wrong? Predictably, everything goes tits up, and somehow the aliens escape and start redecorating the ship with the crew. This is where we are introduced to Morrow, an infiltration unit, probably an advanced prototype, maybe made from a polymeric alloy, who can form complex machines like blowtorches. So it seems in addition to Ridley Scott homages, we're being treated to some James Cameron ones too. I'm noticing a distinct pattern emerging here, and I wonder if we're going to be treated to some David Fincher set pieces too.
Have you ever seen anything like this? No.
I suspect at some point we will get a standalone episode which will show in every gory detail what happened on board the Majino. This episode might actually be a saving grace of the series, as it will give us the dark, atmospheric, bloody, biological horror we were all craving. Hopefully the episode will also cut out Wendy and her gaggle of Terminator toddlers. The 2 stories intersect when the Majino crash lands on Earth. This is where we are introduced to a squad of soldiers. The medic within the team, Joe, just so happens to be Wendy's brother. This has to be the most useless and uninteresting collection of characters of all time. Remember the Marines in Aliens? Despite only being together on screen for a short period before most of them are wiped out, we got to care about them through their amusing conversations, witty one-liners, and the evident camaraderie through excellent writing. There is none of that here. We know nothing and care nothing about these characters. These are nameless and faceless non-entities who are just fodder for the various beasties. They may as well be wearing red uniforms, or have names like Dogmeat Trooper No. 1 and Dogmeat Trooper No. 2. I think I cared more about the cardboard I put out for recycling collection this morning. Upon witnessing the crash of the Majino, our collection of NPCs are promptly dispatched on a search and rescue mission, armed to the teeth. This certainly makes sense. I mean, whenever you see the footage from a natural disaster or a terrorist attack, the first thing you see is the swathes of heavily armed troopers pulling people from the rubble. If you've been through a traumatic incident, you will always want to see a gun rammed in your face. For some inexplicable reason, Wendy and her CBB buddies are also dispatched to the crash site. And then suddenly, we are transported into the raid. As the soldiers battle their way through various floors of the building the spacecraft crashed into. Predictably, the useless no-names are bumped off one by one, but are we really supposed to care? As I mentioned before, there has been little or no character development. Things go from bad to worse at the end of the episode when Wendy is reunited with her brother. Now we are transported from the raid into the Notebook. It seems Alien Earth is replicating the Alien Romulus formula, but where Alien Romulus was essentially a sci-fi version of Toy Story, where a young girl falls in and out of love with her toy robot, Alien Earth is going to be a sci-fi version of What's Eating Gilbert Grape, where a robot spends the whole story protecting and looking after her useless male sibling. So was there anything good about episode 1 and 2 of Alien Earth? No, not really. Actually, that's not fair. Timothy Oliphant was pretty good, even if he was just Roy Batty Mark II. Also, some of the creatures showed some promise. I think Teocelis looks good. I certainly love the zombie cat with its dead limbs trailing limply across the floor. Also, I think the carnivorous plant has scope to be really grim and disgusting. I think we might get some really nasty body horror from this, although I'm not sure about the name. Apparently it's called D-Plumicare, which sounds more like a company you might call to declog your toilet after you've done a banging DEFCON 5 shit. I didn't think much of the vampire bugs, but I suppose they may cocoon and potentially grow into something more interesting. The xenomorph looks like it's made from plastic, and some of its scenes were comically terrible. For my elementary maths, I've only counted 4 bad guys so far, so think the best and worst might be yet to come. So do I think the show is going to improve? Unfortunately not. My prediction is that Alien Earth is going to continue to be a huge wasted opportunity. About 5 weeks ago, I made a few predictions about how this series would play out. I said the first half of this series would be useless NPCs getting picked off by the various beasties, and the second half of the series would be the monsters finally fighting each other. I also predicted that the xenomorphs would be reframed as a force for good in the series, possibly to be utilised against another villain. Maybe Teocelis, or the monster we haven't seen yet. It looks like Wendy may be able to telepathically communicate with the xenomorphs. Will she be able to control them to fight the other monsters? Given the cheesy and embarrassing script so far, nothing would surprise me. All in all, episode 1 and 2 was pretty rubbish. Parts were somewhat entertaining if you didn't think about it too much, and if you forgot every Alien film you've ever seen before. As for the high score on IMDb, I can only assume the bots have been out in full force.
Hey, Vasquez.
Have you ever been mistaken for a man?
No. Have you?
Oh, Vasquez.
He just too bad.
Oh,